happened after the Second World War, just roughly, the Western powers were concerned about Soviet expansion, basically.
Or they wanted to keep themselves in power and make sure they were never pushed aside by democracy.
That's another way to put
really
it.
Democracy, not
That's another way to put it.
expansion,
But
yeah.
they claimed that they were concerned about Soviet expansionism
Yes,
and
they
Soviet-style communism. So they left in place a lot of combatants in Western Europe that were fascists and Nazis, and they were very willing to be ready to fight anything that was going to start up in Western Europe that looked like socialism or communism.
Or democracy.
Or democracy. So anyway, this Operation Gladio was formed, and it was basically loosely controlled by NATO, but by others that are hard to identify. But NATO was part of those agencies. Now, in the 1960s and 1970s, this is when it really gets interesting. Gladio carried out several attacks on civilians, particularly in Italy. We had a situation where they walked into a supermarket. Gunmen, looked a lot like these guys, walked into a supermarket, started killing everybody for no apparent reason, but it really caused a lot of fear. And then they blamed it on...
So this was at the time, I guess this was a communist group that was blamed, because they were the enemy at that point.
They blamed this Red Brigade, and the Red Brigade really didn't have much organization, but they were scapegoated. There was also a bombing in the train station in Bologna in 1980 that killed 80 people. Again, just a straight-ahead attack on civilians, blamed on the Red Brigade.
And who was behind this bombing in Bologna?
Well, this is... where I think you have some information too on this, but this Operation Gladio was blamed for this.
And when we say blamed, we mean they were blamed by the governments in Europe.
That's right. And
Gladio was being run by NATO.
More or less by NATO, but this is a discussion. Now, I think you have a statement from the European Parliament about Gladio, just so people know that this is not some wild story. These are facts, well established, and I think we're going to see if people go to the URLs that we're putting up, if they can look at the information thoughtfully. This is well documented that this operation was undergoing.
Yeah, so I'll just read a few sentences from this. On November 22nd, 1990, the European Parliament passed a resolution on Operation Gladio. It's called Joint Resolution Replacing B3-2021 and several others. A, having regard to the revelation by several European governments of the existence for 40 years of a clandestine parallel intelligence and armed operations organization in several member states of the community. And whereas for over 40 years, this organization has escaped all democratic controls and has been run by the secret services of these states in collaboration with NATO. And C, fearing the danger that such clandestine network may have interfered illegally in the internal political affairs of member states or may still do so. And it goes on. And the last point is that the European Parliament instructs its president to forward this resolution to the Commission, the Council, the Secretary General of NATO, the governments of the member states, and the United States government.